good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual Speakeasy, where the bar is always open and all spirits are always served. We decided tonight that Vanna and I were going to talk about shadow work because this seems to be something that comes out at every event that we're at. And also, it comes out at every event that we're at. So it's either talked about or clients have issues with, or other practitioners are working through tough times. And so we decided that we are creating a course on tough shadow work, not the unicorn shitting glitter while it burps beautiful clouds of rainbows up into the air, but the real deep shadow work. It's going to be a really honest to God class. Like, it's going to be shadow work. It's going to help you through that. But we wanted to talk today about what is shadow work. What is it? Because there's so many words that everybody says, "Oh, I'm doing shadow work. I'm doing shadow work. I'm doing shadow work. I'm doing shadow work." And what the hell is it? Like a Pokemon? You can catch them all, or what is it?
It depends on how many shadows there are.
And they mutate just like Pokemon. So if you feed them and you take really good care of them,
it's like the Babadook.
It is the Babadook.
Yeah. That was a great movie. I love that movie.
Babadook Pokemon. There is no Babadook Pokemon. I'm sure there's one similar, though.
Yes.
Sure, there's one similar. So, do you want to jump in and define shadow work, how you define, or do you want me to give the general practice? Let me give a couple examples. Okay. Shadow work has been known as, I have demons and I have to shed myself from them. That would be shadow work, right? Because I'm eliminating the evil, the bad parts of my personality, the parts that's too loud, the part that's too big, the part that's too fun, the part that doesn't, that probably fits in more than she doesn't, but people are jealous of. That would be shadow work, right? I mean, have you heard people come up and use these definitions?
Yes. Well, I mean, the one thing that I definitely come across in a lot is that people using words and then thinking that like the other person uses the same word that they do and they mean the same thing.
Same thing.
But exactly. They don't. Yeah. So you do really have to sit down and be like, okay, so help me understand, what is your shadow work like?
Right.
Okay. And yeah,
what does that mean?
Science has given us somewhat of a platform to explore. Jung did that for us, blessed Jung. And then, he wasn't just a psychologist, he was a metaphysical explorer, right? So this is a very spiritual thing. It's a very personal thing. And I think it looks very different for a lot of people, but it really is, I think, in its most like basic summary, it's learning to face the things that terrifies you about yourself. It's learning to go back to those experiences that made you fear for your survival, and really be like, okay, I'm ready to face this now, so it doesn't hold me prisoner anymore, and I can be like a whole person. Like for me, that's kind of what shadow work means. But for others, it could be very different. And then also people's motivation for doing shadow work, however deep or superficial they get, is all very different.
And that's going to change, how you view shadow work too, because within shadow work is like, a multi-volume encyclopedia. And then there's different things you do within shadow work that constitute different books or different entries. And so you could have a 21 book encyclopedia set called shadow work, and then how people do it, why they do it, what aspects, and then you get into each category and what you meet, and then the reactions and the action.
I would say that Dante's Inferno, and which is only one of 3 poems, right? So there's also Purgatorium and then Paradiso. I would think that was like one of our more antiquitous references for shadow
work. Absolutely. Absolutely. And really, like, if you want to get into the psychology involved in like Count Dracula, or Dracula, or what was not Nosferatu, the original.
No, Nosferatu is
Original,
the original
the
one.
original Dracula that Mary, whatever her name is, wrote.
Mary Shelley didn't write it. It was Bram
She wrote
Stoker.
Frankenstein. My bad.
Yeah, yeah, I'm like, although I love Mary Shelley, I love her.
Wrong horror creature. Anyway, the one who wrote the original Dracula.
Bram Stoker.
Okay. When you look at that version is so dark. And really, to me, I always figured it was those pieces of myself. And do you let go of the pieces yourself and become that self? Or do you integrate it and find a happy balance? And in the end, I think both of the people at the end of that one, they were so enmeshed, so the whole thing was messed up. But from a psychology point, I always saw that it was more like shadow work. Like the real vampire in all the stories, isn't that really something that we're afraid of ourselves?
Well, I mean, the nature of a vampire is very, very fascinating, right? And I mean, I look at vampires, and I have so many feelings for them. And they're complex. One of the feelings, and I think one of the reasons why, someone like me is most prone to getting entangled with those sorts of situations, is because it's like the empathy I do feel for them. You know what I mean? And it's just like there is a lot of intoxication that goes along there, because that's also a part of how it feeds, right? So like,
it sucks you in with kindness, it sucks you in with attention. Very much the same as your glamour spells or anything like that.
Well, and it's fascinating too, because I'm starting to conceptualize, I've been thinking about, I've always kind of studied, I feel like we might be veering off topic here, but we're not. We're just looping around.
No, I've got an actual loop. I'm going to loop this.
Right on. Cool. I've been thinking, I've always been a little bit fascinated with cults, because I do I have that psychology bent, and I am kind of like a metaphysical student. But it's really fascinating, because I think that their mechanisms of behavior are actually really quite similar, psychic vampirism, abusive relationships, narcissistic relationships, all of these things. But where I want to give them credit is that they're wonderful catalysts for growth.
Oh, hell yeah.
And that's really what shadow work's about. Right?
Right. So, it is growth, but it's also, I completely agree with where you're at, but I also think that there's this component that we see that and we're like, oh my God, am I that way? Or, if I was that way, or maybe you see something in them that's that way, and you kind of there's that moment where you can either just ride along with it and see where it takes you, or you have to do some deep work. And I think that triggers that. I think your vampirism, your psychic, I mean, blood is parasitic. Either way, it's a parasitic relationship, right? They're a parasite latching on, but they have to have permission to latch on. But isn't that also part of our shadow self? I mean, I think we bond with people who are like that, because that entertains that part of our shadow self we've ignored.
For sure. And I mean, again,
I brought it back to shadow.
Well, and because it all is very much a part of that. It's a part of that energy level.
But I just want to see, actually, it's kind of a way for me to see who's on without having to go, hey, but I'm really so-and-so. 1, if you've ever done shadow work. 2, if you haven't done shadow work, comment in the comments. You don't have to comment anything else. Just 1, yes, you have done some shadow work. 2, you've never done it before. And maybe 3, if this is the first time you've heard about it, not heard from it. It doesn't call.
This is the first time
sometimes it does shadow work. Sometimes it does call. Yes. Hello. Good to see you. Good to see you. So yeah, we've talked about what it is, kind of. Well, we really haven't talked about what it is. I mean, Vanna said what she thought it was. I've given 2 opinions that other people have commented and said, this is what I think shadow work is. I think shadow work, other things that I've heard in my career have been, I'm taking a look at the dark dreams that I have. okay, I'm sure a subcategory or subcategory of some part they're in shadow work, but that is not, I mean, that's dream work. That's not shadow work. I've had people take it quite literally, like I am able to see shadows and therefore I'm working on that skill. And I've had that been brought to me, which is a very literal interpretation. Hello.
I know one. There are the shadow people. So it's just, they're not wrong.
No, and so that's why my whole point is, before you get into something, ask questions. Like if you're taking a shadow work class, like if you take our class and you sign up for our class, then you don't know what it is, then you're responsible to ask that. We will give you a filler, but you need to ask your questions, have your ducks in a row, and you should be asking questions like, what does this mean to you? How does this work if it means this to me? And a good presenter of a class or anything should be able to tell. Good practitioners should not get offended because you've asked them to explain differences. Or how is this similar? We should be able to do that with ease.
Well, it's always good when you can find the common factors, especially when you're dealing with things that are so
the English language is just really fucked.
It is, but you're also talking about like a very subjective experience.
Yes, you are. You're right. But it's kind of like when we say we're keeping space, how are we keeping space? Like, what does that mean to me? And we've talked about that. It may not mean the same thing to you. So we should always ask, like, if you don't know what somebody's doing, ask. That's the big thing. Don't be afraid to ask. And if they're snotty about it, then get the fuck out of their way, because they don't need to be around those people anyway.
Yeah, that's I mean, that indicates that there's some work that needs to be done there, right? Because it's such a subject.
I mean, people should be willing to answer questions. That's a thing. That is a thing. So shadow work. My definition of shadow work is much like the yin and the yang. We have many, many different personalities. Some maybe are hotter than others. Some maybe are cooler than others. I like to use the words hot and cool rather than good and bad, because I think bad is very relative, as is good. Gabriel did a lot of shit for the kingdom of heaven. He was kind of two-faced, but he worked for good, right? So when you look at shit like that, you kind of go, So good and bad are relative depending on what situation you're in. Billy Hill come out there. Situation. Hi, Patty. Situation. Hi. And I'm just starting tonight. So, situation. Depending on your situation, good can be bad and bad can be good. Just depends on how you slant your perspective and how you see it and how other people see it. So I think it's a whole bunch of personalities in ourselves. Some are hotter than others and some are cold. And I think the ones we show the most tends to have an opposite side that is within us. And some of that is Chrissy says, now I'm talking in her accent. I think the cold and the hot, they balance each other, but one casts a shadow. And I think the shadow can be good or the shadow can be bad. I think it's an aspect of ourselves that is not in the light right now. I think sometimes it's a demon. I don't mean demons like Catholic Church demons. My followers know what I mean by demon. Something we've created, or it's an opposing thought that have been restricted and we're not allowed to have. And so I personally don't believe in eliminating any of that shadow, any of the shadow work people, any of the people involved, the people, places, and things. I think you have to integrate and at least be able to find a tolerance and a temperance and a different perspective. It doesn't mean you have to always enjoy it. It can be a not so good thing, but you have to have some kind of radical acceptance that it's just part of who you are and what you are, and you can change it. Yes. But you don't have to always like those parts of our personalities that come. It's kind of like reintegrating a multiple personality or a DID.
I mean, it can be because, like when we talk about ourselves as individuals, we're also very complex systems because you're right. We do have a lot of different sides to ourselves. And then, there are parts of us at certain times that will be louder than others. And, I've said it many times, like, I often kick myself in the ass because like, there were parts of me that was trying to tell me something and I disregarded it because of, context or because of like me wanting to put like, someone else's emotional well-being and their needs before my own.
Sure.
And I mean, and that's a part of shadow work too. It's
Yes.
like, how are you creating these patterns that create the same heartache for you or the same challenge, right? I mean, that's a part of it because it's just like, how are you playing the villain in your own story and you're not even aware of it? So for me, I think that when the shadow comes creeping out or whatever, it's one of those things where those are kind of maybe what a psychologist would refer to as like symptoms, right? And see, symptoms are just that. They're symptoms. They're like an indication that there's something going on. And it's not the problem, though.
No.
And I think that most of the times people look at symptoms as in like the symptom is the
That's
problem.
why there's the medicine there is for every symptom.
Right. And I mean, this isn't the type of when we're talking about shadow work and stuff like that, the symptoms that you're experiencing are trying to tell you to go deeper. It's telling you like you are cutting something off and you're not paying attention to it. So the sides or, something's getting the better of you or these things wouldn't be coming out. So it's really a time for like introspection, but it's always really great when you can have somebody guide you.
Right. Well, and not get lost along the way because there's so many flags, green and red, whatever color you see along the way. Purple, pink, tie-dye, pink and blue, white and black, black and yellow, black and yellow. But there's so many things along the way that if you have somebody to help guide you, they can show you like, oh, you missed this step and this step to get to this step. Like, now this is why we have to keep going back and working this because you're missing the whole middle section, and other people who's not in the moment that's been there can do that. But the thing is, there's so many people out there. Excuse me. There's so many people out there. It's a good drink. That hi, good to see you. There are so many people out there that want to lead people in shadow work and they want to charge for these classes and they have no idea what the fuck a shadow is.
Well,
I said that.
I mean, I know, but that's where it gets it gets hazy for me a little bit just because our experiences like across humanity on a universal level they mirror each other so much, but then they also don't. And again, like, what would be a catalyst for one person to do shadow work is so outside of the frame of that other person's like comprehension of reality.
Sure. No, I get what you're saying now. Yeah.
It's really hard, and I mean, there's some people who are just kind of like their level of, we all have different levels of experience. It doesn't mean that some person's more advanced than the other. It just means that, within that particular realm, like they know it well.
That's
Does
true.
that make sense?
Well, and as the deeper the levels go, the harder the work gets. And yeah, so a person who's just now hearing of the word shadow work is going to have a completely different level of anticipation and what they work through. It's like an onion. I mean, it really is like peeling the onion unless you just do a deep dive, and that can be destructive if you're not ready to handle a deep dive. That's hard to just rip the Band-Aid off and go straight to the center, the core of the wound. I mean, I don't even see it as a wound.
When people do things like hallucinogenics or
that's what that is.
It's just like you're getting ready to just go down the rabbit hole, and it's you better be comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
And for some people they're not. And
no,
I mean,
if you're scared of yourself and scared of the things that are going to come out, then you definitely need a guide because there's a lot of scary things out there. That's a song.
Cool. Yeah, and you know, and I'm again, it's something that like you can talk about objectively because people have done the work and then they've charted it. And you can go by that as a guide, but you can't consider it like a straight up blueprint for you because your experience is going to be completely different. And I don't think that shadow work is something that it's deep. And the things that really, like, I mean, for those people who've been thrown into a situation in which that was their only way for survival, you know, usually those catalysts are really big and incredibly destructive. And sometimes it shatters people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, this isn't, I mean, we're talking about like, I guess self-actualization. And that's a hell of a goal.
Yeah. And always, you never really realize that. I mean, that's like always striving to be God. Isn't that God? I mean, really? I mean, not God, like we think of biblical God, but the biggest thing, the creator, the biggest thing in the universe that is, would have to have been self-actualized to create the way that it created.
Maybe. I guess I haven't thought about it from that perspective. Because like I just don't think I have that perspective from my lowly human eye.
No, I'm still the bug in the locker at the airport in Men in Black.
But I do think that I mean, for me as a human being and as a spiritual being, like I think I owe it to myself. And for the sake of, if reincarnation is a thing, then I want to make sure that I don't want to be an overachiever, but at the same time, like, I just want to be able to make sure that I can do what I can to be able to evolve, because I think that the whole purpose of evolving is not just for you to be able to integrate with yourself and to heal and to truly not be held by I guess the tethers of the past, but it's also so you can help others. I think, you know what I mean? And sometimes helping others is maybe just not being symptomatic anymore.
The amen to that.
You know, you don't necessarily have to be a guide and just be like, well, I made it through the tunnel, so, you know, let me show you the way, because that's not everybody's purpose.
No.
You know, and that's okay.
No. And not everybody can be guides. I mean, there has to be people to guide through, right? Like, I mean, there's a certain percentage of everything. And being scared of shadow, like, you know, we always see those little, and I talk about them all the time, those little memes that are out there where the lady's sitting smoking a cigarette with a bottle of whiskey with her demon sitting next to her, and the demon goes, well, tell me about your day first. You know, that's how but it's not always, like, it may be big and it may be scary, but it may not always be bad, right?
I agree. So, like, you know, I've always had a soft spot for monsters. Like, I just have. I don't know why. Maybe it's that because, like, what they call it, I don't want to call it insufferable empathy, but it's almost like it's empathy to the point of being stupid. Like, and I'm like, Satanists have a really beautiful way of saying it, and it's escaping me, but like they hit the nail on the head, and I'm like, see, those guys. But it's basically just being like so empathetic that it's counter. It's almost stupid. Like you're making yourself suffer, and you're not recognizing, or you refuse to recognize that other people are taking advantage of you, and you choose not to stand up. You just allow it to happen, right? Well, I guess if the awareness hasn't hit you, because it takes a little while to gain that awareness.
It does.
And that in and of itself, it can be incredibly shocking, right? So I guess I got lost in what I was saying. My soft spot for monsters. So, I mean, I think that, for instance, I can talk about the Banshee. Okay. So I love the Banshee. Like, you know, death is very much an integral part of life. It sounds counterintuitive, but it just is. And, you know, the Banshee comes to let people know that it is coming, that
it's a forewarning.
It's a warning, and it's a profound sadness. Like, I don't think that I could ever be afraid of the Banshee, Because I mean, there's rage there and there's like massive sorrow and stuff like that. I'm like, her heart is shattered.
Absolutely. It
I'm
was.
like,
It
how
was
can you be scared of that? Bless her heart. She needs a hug. Like, how do you,
that's why we do what we do.
on empathy for them.
That's why we do what we do, Van. Because we're the kind that are going to go up and go, oh God, do you need a cup of coffee and a hug? Or a shot of whiskey and a hug?
I'd be like, you absolutely deserve a cigarette now.
Let me get you a drink. I can't even talk tonight. Good God. A parahistorian. As a researcher involved in the supernatural, similar fields, I believe it's valuable to familiarize with different topics of understanding because these enrich perspectives and deepen insights. Katie, I love you. That's Katie, our producer, an owner. So yeah, exactly. And there's so many parts of it is a monster. Like some of this stuff we make monsters. We can make them as mean and scary looking as we choose to, depending on what we fed them and how we've kept away from them. And, perspective is one thing. Everybody's got a different perspective. So it may to you look like something really scary. And to me, it may look like Sully. Sully to me is not scary at all.
I know.
Most of the monsters I see on TV are not scary at all because I've seen some real shit. And the real shit's always a lot more nasty than what they make on TV. Like they just don't quite capture the essence or the smell or the taste and everything else. Makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And there's some, I would love to be able to be naive and just be like, there's not anything out there that isn't out there to try to eat you or to try to get you or that won't prey on you. But I mean, that's not the truth. Like, no. We don't live in that kind of world. And unfortunately, I don't think that we ever did, know? And I mean, and there's things that we have throughout the ages that hint and beckon us at shadow work. So we can be, I think, survivors on a certain level. I mean, like, look at all of the Grimm fairy tales. That wasn't just a case history of oral history or, and although it was, and of linguistics and all those beautiful things, but
they were not just stories to scare children.
No, they were trying to tell you what's out there. And then also, you like most of those are chronicles of shadow work. I would say the movie Never Ending Story
was definitely shadow work.
And even like, the Labyrinth with like Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie, like that's also shadow work. And that, I don't know if I would call that shadow work as much as I would call that growing up. But I also think that's shadow work.
Shadow work.
Because it is an onion.
Even How to Train Your Dragon is shadow work.
Yeah, man.
There's some deep shadow work there.
Some family stuff, man. And that it does come back to our origins. And how did we learn to create attachments? How did we learn how to survive? What are the survival rules that we hold ourselves to that are dated or outdated? Yeah,
what are you willing to do? I mean, you look at The Walking Dead and you go into, the polar opposite. You have the main characters of the story, Michonne and all of them, and they're fighting their way through. And then you have the Negans. But Negan turned out to be almost like them in the end, but he had a lot harder things happen all the way through to make him who he was. So he was a survivor, and he refused that he was not going to ever be the victim after he had lost his wife and kid, right? So he snapped and he became the controller. That's shadow work. How far are you willing to step into your dark side? It's like Luke and Darth Vader.
It is shadow work, but I think what's interesting in that particular example is you see somebody who begins to embark upon the journey of doing so, and instead of going all the way through it, they got froze at a particular step. And I mean, that is a trap. I'm not saying it's a trap. I'm just saying it is an option along the way.
It is an option.
So I think for somebody like, to take this for, the metaphysical homies out there, the dogs that, do the magical research, like, take Aleister Crowley, for instance.
Mhm.
Like, he's another person who not only chronicled, like, this is what it is to be a metaphysician, and these are the experiments I did, and this is, case study of my social group. He was also very much being incredibly public about what his shadow work
Yes.
and he's somebody who made a lot of, I don't know how conscious I didn't meet the guy that way. But I think that, for better or worse, like, recklessly, he threw himself into it, and his goal wasn't necessarily, it was to integrate, but I don't think that for someone like that, it was to ever come out. And that is a choice. That is absolutely a choice.
And it's an easy choice for the, I mean, it's not hard for some personalities to not choose that. So you have to be very cautious to not get lost along the way, which is another reason you have somebody to check in with and, process with and be led by, because people are more apt to go, hey, whoa.
It's almost like a switch, right? So, like, because, we have this, like, the who we present ourselves as and who we believe we are and how we show ourselves up. I'm trying not to do the introduction from Tales from the Dark Side, but I feel it coming on. But it's, you know what I'm talking about. But so it's one of those things where, like, and I mean, it starts to become a struggle for people, because that actually, as many people as they go through these experiences begin to find out that that's actually kind of a mask, and it's like, it starts to crack, and then they start to feel really anxious, incredibly uncomfortable. They notice that they start doing things that are like, let's just say they're completely sober, but they might as well be drunk, because they're acting so disorganized in who they are, And it's because they know that they're lying to themselves and they're lying to others. And that's when you'll begin to really see the symptoms start bleeding out, right? Yeah. And so, and for some people to switch, and you can just go from that to, the persona that you prefer, and then the other side can take over. And you might not even be completely conscious of it, but you just completely switch into that persona. And then you're just like, well, I don't know how I just blew everything up. That's
but
not
no awareness. That's for me, the critical part is, to do healthy shadow work and integrate purely healthy in a healthy manner for mind, body, and spirit and work. You have to know who's driving at all times. And there has to be a level of control and trust.
That's true. But you're talking about a very profound relationship that one can have with themselves, right?
Yes. And that's what shadow work is. That's exactly my point.
Well, how do you do it when you're a baby at shadow work? But I
don't think it's your trip. I don't think it's not there yet. Like, I think the memories have to start coming in. I think, I don't think, if you don't have the capacity to remember certain events in your own life going on now, let alone other things, other people's, the connection deep, and then go back into other lives and generations. If you can't even look at other deaths and rebirths, maybe look at your own family generationally back, which is close enough, and see where there's issues, because issues will form patterns, and those patterns become the shadows that you inherit, as well as your own shadows. And so I think you have to do some deep introspection in that, and you have to look and say, how far back is this going? What are the patterns? What is a baby doesn't have that. A baby may have the DNA lineage, like it's got the DNA code.
Well, I mean, somebody, when I say baby, let me clarify. I think what I'm trying to say is someone who recognizes that they feel uncomfortable.
Oh, like a beginning student in shadow work. Okay. So a beginning student in shadow work would have to sit down and express a desire to look deeper into themselves, and maybe start it. Why do I do the things that I do in patterns? Why does this seem to keep happening to me? That's a great question. Why does this keep happening to you? You keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different set of results. That's, the definition of insanity, or at least human behavior that's unaware. There's There's a big difference there. But there's a lot of people out there, so I'm like, I'm being nice. I think that, yeah, I think at a basic level, you have to be able to desire to even look at your behavior and go, there are certain patterns and certain things in my life that I keep repeating over and over again. You're not going to do shadow work if everything is kosher and you're truly happy and in a state of bliss and joy all the time. I said all the time. Very, very few humans reach that, but there are those people who just do their own thing. They're oblivious to anything going on. I don't think they're going to have to do the shadow work that those of us that have paid attention to every fucking detail and thing are going to have to do, because we're keeping marks. We're like pro and con, and we're like, oh shit, there's a flag. Like, we're constantly watching, and I think it makes a difference.
Well, I think you're also describing, you know, and you indicated that those are two incredibly very different experiences, right? You're talking about somebody who is having, you know, a survival based existential crisis, essentially. Oh, here we go. And I mean, you know, because again, those big things, like us feeling like a nervous breakdown, you know, like whatever it may be, like something catastrophic in your life, of course, like those are the, hey, it's time. That's something bigger outside of yourself coming in and saying, hey, it's time for you to like reconfigure and
yes,
and you know,
reset, reboot.
Right. And I think I always see those as invitations for, you know, some shadow work, right? Because we may not always know, because again, like awareness is a thing.
And I think that was my point with the whole, you know, like seeing patterns or seeing things come up in yourself that disagree with things, or conflicting, even conflicting thoughts in your head. I really feel like I want to be this, or I need to be this. But there's a part of me that's like, oh no, you can't be this. You shouldn't be that. You need shadow work. Like it's bringing something to you. It's conflictual. It's not necessarily bad or good, but just conflicting thoughts on things that are deep personal things. Like, my family says I'm really loud, I need to be quiet, but I feel like I'm really happy being the way I am. Then look back. Start looking at patterns, start looking at other people, start looking at everything. And that's the shadow work. When you begin that quest to find out why there's certain things going on, or why you don't understand something, I think that is it.
I think, yeah. And I mean, but the big, like, there's a piece to that I think is a bridge, maybe. And you'd actually have to want to, though.
Well,
that's a
exactly
big,
that's the hugest piece right there. It's hugest.
Bridges are big deals, man.
It is big deals, because if you don't have that desire, and then you don't have the ability to listen. Okay, so that's another thing. You know, when you come to somebody like us for help, we're going to do a lot of listening, but it doesn't work by osmosis. And my words, should use them more often.
The brain was there, but the tongue was unwilling.
It never is. It never is. I think that you have to actively listen, and you have to want to hear. So it's kind of like hiring somebody to help you get through something, but you don't want to hear the advice. You really just want them to keep cleaning up after the parties that you were never invited to. That is not moving you ahead in any direction at all. I mean, your house is staying clean, but you're not elevating on your own there at all. And you really aren't elevating, because when that support is pulled, you will have not moved an ounce.
That's true. Yeah. And I think that, again, you know, it's like maybe understanding what your needs are. It's just like, you know, why are you seeking this? It's just like, are you just needing someone? Because there are people out there who are just like, I really just need you to hear me on this.
Yes.
I don't even want to hear anything back. I just need to process this out loud and know that I have a witness. And I mean, that's a goal.
Yes, it is.
Right? But that's not shadow work.
No.
That's just, you know, that's it's a catharsis, you know, but it's a catharsis with, you know, I almost want to call it an abrupt end. Kind of like, you know, oh yeah, you went on the roller coaster ride. Now it's over. It's been a minute and a half later. And it's just like, you know, that was just enough for you to be able to get your jollies and get off and move along. And maybe that's what, you know, that person needs.
And there's a lot of people level. There's a lot of people out there that see it that way too. Like, oh, you know, I had this traumatic thing come up with a friend or, you know, a family member or somebody like that. You know, me and my sister got into a big fight at home and my mom kicked one of us out, and whatever the scenario is. And like, you work through that and they'll go, oh, I did a whole bunch of shadow work. I mean, Greg points out people do it when life becomes unmanageable, but you should be managing this all along. It's kind of like your checkbook. When that bitch blows up and it's unmanageable, you kind of waited too long to do it. You know, like,
well, and is that just kind of a way to also, it makes me wonder, because again, it depends on who's speaking it and what the context is, right? But is that also a way to just be like, you know, everybody was really upset, everything got really blown up and out of proportions, and I was shunned, I was ostracized, I was put outside of the group, I was put in timeout.
My mom kicked me out,
and now I'm coming back. And, you know, and it's like, I learned my lesson. Can everything just go back to the way that it was? Because, you know, that's not real shadow work. That's, you know, somebody kicked my tail between my legs and I don't like it. And I want to be back to where I was socially.
Right.
Right. Right. But if you say, hey, I did my shadow work, well, it's just like, well, hello, Willy Wonka and your damn golden ticket. But I mean, you know, what does it mean? Right. I mean, I'm sorry.
I'm really glad I did not have a mouthful of anything at that time.
I'm glad, because I'm not trying to kill you.
It was twice yesterday. Twice yesterday you got me. Hello, Willy Wonka. I'm just like, the fuck? Oh my God. Don't say that in the middle of your shadow work. Hello, Willy Wonka. You could have a shadow demon named Willy. You could.
My shadow work is a bit different, you know. I mean, I did I wrote a whole book about, I did my shadow work very publicly. And I was hoping that, like, and doing that, I could put somebody in what it is to be in my shoes, not because I want to be like a victim or because I want to spread vicarious trauma by any means, although I am a trauma enthusiast. It was more so people could see what it looks like after you've been shaped by trauma, right? And then also what you're willing to become after doing the shadow work. But I think that through my journey, which could look very different compared to somebody else's journey, for me, I really, like, I don't think it's okay for me to point fingers at anybody else and about their monstrosities, their behavior, the things that I feel self-righteous over, right? Without going, before I call a motherfucker, excuse my language.
Oh, you're good. You're on YouTube. You're fine.
Then I need to make sure that, like, my hands are clean before, you know, I open the door at somebody else's house screaming at them. And for me, that is shadow work on my own personal.
And that's a pretty high level shadow work when you start realizing that, you know, you're judging other people, making comments and depreciating or degrading other people with your own introspection as you're perfect.
Well,
and
yeah.
So, you know, when you realize that maybe you got as much going on as that other person and you probably shouldn't say anything, that's the nice thing to do, because if you can't say something nice, don't say it, right?
Well, and it's not just so much like, well, if you can't say something nice, don't say it, although I'm rooting for you. It's one of those things that it's, for me, I recognize those as red flags.
Yes.
So I'm just kind of like, you know, because again, I'm a very narrative person. I like movies. I like, you know, reading books. I love stories. And, you know, some of the greats, you know, and I always notice, like, and we can even talk about Mary Shelley for a second, since she's a goddess and we're not. But, like, you know, that was shadow work.
That was shadow work.
Is deep shadow work.
Yes, it is.
And I mean,
his whole character is shadow work. His whole character is shadow.
And look how they treated the poor creature. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, no, okay, I understand that he had some aesthetic issues, okay? And maybe he was a little rough around the edges. But I mean, he was still a being.
Have you seen the latest Frankenstein?
I have not.
So that's one you have to watch, because much like, and I am such a, like, I absolutely love Rob Zombie. I think he is such a fascinating individual. But his movies, and I know a lot of people, I'm like trying to get my camera, a lot of people are really like freaked out by him and his violence level and his graphic level of his movies. But there is such a shadow aspect to those movies. House of a Thousand Corpses is like House of a Thousand Shadows. You know, it's, you know, really, when you look at those aspects, you know, the craziness and the insanity and the impulsiveness and the every person out there has some kind of thought going through their head at one point in time in their life that would resemble something in that movie.
Okay, I was reading
I believe the first step to start shadow work is self-honesty, starting with self, and judgment is the hardest part. It sure is. Greg says Rob Zombie rocks. He does. So the newest thing of Frankenstein actually is set up very much like a Rob Zombie movie, where they go into the psychological aspects of Frankenstein and how his owner treated him and how the female treated him and how things evolved through the course of time. It's an unbelievable movie.
It's a beautiful case study. I mean, the whole story is a beautiful case study of trauma. It really is. And like, you know, and I mean, I should have known that I was going to have a romance with trauma, like early on, like the signs were there. Okay, let's just put it that way. And it is it is a tragic romance, you know what I mean? But it's also, I mean, it's one that I think is a worthwhile one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's one of those like epic Joseph Campbell adventures, right? It's the power of myth. It's finding, you know, through it's facing that, like, what was that wolf guy? What was his name in Neverending Story? Anyway, the wolf.
Oh.
He was the Nothing's buddy, I think.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
You know, I mean, can you face that? Can you face that inside of yourself and then really come out the other side, like walking like Atreyu, you know? And it's like, I think that you can. I mean, every time they went through one of those gates with the oracles, right? I mean, you could get blown up.
Gmork?
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's
Gmork, the servant of the power behind the nothing. Gmork.
Yes.
Or work with the silent G.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all of those things are really great metaphor for what it is to do shadow work, right? And
look at Red Riding Hood.
Oh yes, that's a big
Hansel and Gretel.
Oh, huge.
You know, those are all shadow work things. All shadow work. All, you know, you're looking at the dark aspects of ourselves. There's a wolf in all of us. There's a little Red Riding Hood in all of us. You know, which one is going to be the strongest of the personalities and where's the battle going to be? And that's why, you know, when I say shadow work, I'm very cautious. Like people will go, well, I've got this one side of me that's so light, but it's battling this, like, you know, you can have too much light too and have to fight the light shadows. So, I mean, it's not, that's why I don't like saying shadows are bad things. I don't like the word bad and good. That's very judgmental for things that are very gray.
Well, yeah, I mean, shadows are gray, like for sure.
You know, they are not black and white. I mean, some might be justified as black and white, but not everything falls in a black and white pattern.
That's true. Most things don't. But in a world where people find comfort and certainty, that's very difficult. You know,
labels.
Yeah, and labels, and then also
labels create more shadows.
The stigmas that go along with you know, these ideas that are not just like social constructs that we just walked outside and ran into for the first time today. These are things that are deeply transgenerational. They're completely embedded in our DNA. Like that's why so many of those stories, I mean, hundreds of years later, we're still referencing them.
Right.
Because there's a primal reality to them.
Very, very primal. But shadow work is primal. I mean, people have been doing it since the beginning of time.
Well, Jekyll and Hyde is another really great case study of
Oh,
shadow
absolutely.
work. And it's what it looks like when, I mean, framed in like an addiction sort of narrative. But I mean, that's just like one example of what it can look like. And
Right.
that's why there is so many people who struggle with addiction. I mean, and maybe I'm simplifying it, but I mean, really, if you try to boil it down to its essence, it's somebody running from something.
It is. It is. Instead of making peace, and some of it, is inner child related. There's so many, that's where you get into you get into the different encyclopedia volumes for that encyclopedia branch of the shadow work. I think, there's everything from trauma, there's to the generational trauma, to the other people's trauma that you chose to take on that isn't even your fucking trauma.
Well, yeah, and trauma is a really complex thing because
Yes,
it's an objective thing and it's also a subjective thing. So I think it was really insightful for like a boy Mady, if I'm saying his name wrong, I feel really bad about that. And Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, because I think that they point out something that's really important. Now, while I think that shadow work is a part of a human's ultimate growth span, if they can make it to those kind of evolutionary levels throughout their life experience, because some people get cut short, right?
yes.
And then some people choose not to grow past a particular level.
Right.
But I mean, like, I think that growth arc is available to all of us, but when we talk about trauma, like, not everybody becomes traumatized.
No.
You can experience a trauma, you can experience something that's upsetting, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you were traumatized by it.
That is correct.
Trauma,
and you can tell that by 20 people being traumatized by the same thing and handling it 20 different ways.
For sure. I mean, war is a horrible thing, but if it's anything, it's a beautiful case study and the impacts of trauma.
Yes.
And all of the different faces that comes with it, because I mean, it is a whole nother chapter with its own section of what insanity can present as. And really, it's somebody reacting normal given the extraordinary circumstances that they've had to live through. And, I mean, it also very adeptly was described as trauma is the result of an event. It's a wound that occurs because of an event. So it's a result of the event. It's not the event itself. Does that make sense?
It's like, I came at you and I stabbed you with a knife.
Yeah, man. And now I've got this gaping wound. Now there's more than one wound there, right? There's the physical one.
Now she's got a fractured rib.
Yes. There's absolutely
the trauma is not me cutting her.
Well, that's another level though to it.
It is another level, but then also this isn't the same level.
If you came after me with a knife and you stabbed me, I would be hurt physically and that would be obvious. Yes. But you would also damage me emotionally and psychically. And then my hypervigilance would be through the roof, because I would just be like, someone I truly loved got me. So like that wound is not just a matter of like getting like my ribs to grow back together and for me to like get those stitches, right? I mean, you could actually kill me and collapse a lung. So let's watch.
You might have a fear of knives from now on. You might have like back off if somebody goes to give you a steak knife. You're going to be like, whoa, like there's a whole level of reactivity.
Yeah, and it's the result of that is actually the wound that like trauma experts work with, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, the thing.
Which is one of the things we do in rebirthing, Kundalini rebirthing, is to work a person through their anger. It's a very, if you do it correctly and you're like in a studio and you're taking classes in it, it's a very lengthy period where you start with rebirthing exercises and you work through anger and you work through feelings and meeting your inner child, and you sit with your inner child for long periods of time, and there's dances in which, where you can even just sit in a chair and you move in a certain way, and there's a mantra that you work through to let go of each of these different things so that you're peeling back the onion. But you do these things like every couple weeks, every month, you change it up so that you have the ability to process in between the dances and the movement and the release of those things.
Mm-hmm. And being experiential when you are working through this is also,
yes,
it's a huge way to be able to physically move these things out of your body.
mm-hmm.
Like the somatic responses.
Absolutely. And the breathing exercises, like the fire, breath of fire, and the different things that allow you to, get that shit out and learn how to get it out from the belly deep, below the navel deep, is so important.
Well, and that's one thing that I had to learn about, like how I responded to stress and anxiety and things that that were really like taking a lot out of me on all of my levels, like spiritual, emotional, physical. And it's how are you breathing?
Oh shit. Like hell. Anytime I get stressed, I lock up right here. It hurts all the way straight through to my back. It's very much like gallbladder pain, except for it doesn't shift to the right. It's like just right there, and I can feel it, and it hits. And it's just like, and I've locked up, and I realize my diaphragm is locked up. My solar plexus is completely locked up and turning under. Like it's like you're sucking that top part of your gut in, but your lower belly is like just kind of hanging loose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but and it's like it's a while, and that's that awareness piece, right?
Right.
I'd have to be like, holy shit, I can't breathe. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm the one who's not breathing. And it's just like, okay, hold on.
Yeah. And recognizes, and I'm the podcaster, recognizing that, you have to be able to know where your body's at. If you don't know where your body is at normally, you're not going to know when your body's off. So, that's one reason meditation is so healthy, besides calming the mind and the body and the spirit, is you're finding out where your set point is. You're finding out where, when they're in that second or that moment where there's no fight, flight, or fright, this is what my heart feels like. This is what my breathing feels like. This is what my skin temperature feels like. This is how I'm regulated. My feet, I'm not curling at my toes. I'm not, clenching my hand. I'm not, if I'm not flipping my hair, I'm not chewing my fingernails. Wherever I'm at my set point is where I need to be. And any increment above that is raising the level of stress for me. And then why am I being stressed in this moment? And if you go, because here comes the same thing that I've expected, then you're creating a pattern, and then you need shadow work. And if it's somebody else next to you that's setting you off, and you're allowing them to sit there and set you off, then you probably need shadow work.
So help me understand, like, why would, what are the different ways? You're giving examples, like those are two of them, but like, so what are the things that people can recognize our signs that, this is a thing where, and I'm like, for you, like, where have your signs been in your life to be like, oh, it's time. Like,
I think for me, one of the biggest things is incongruence in thoughts. And I don't mean like chasing squirrels. I mean, like, when I start questioning something like,
your reality,
that's a give or take any day. That's funny. I love that. I think the big thing with me is, why am I unhappy? Why am I nervous? Why am I anxious, sad, glad? I'm very much aware of shifts, and if something is upsetting me, or I'm stagnant in something, or conflict. Okay. So like most people know this story about me. You know how you just like feel like when you're in a meditation, or maybe you don't know, or you're thinking about yourself, and you have to think of yourself, like in craft, most people want to put you in a box. So you think of yourself as light and dark, right? There's light witches, there's dark witches, and really we're all just witches, right? But people want to categorize and label. So some of us work darker than others. Some of us work colder than others. Some of us work with the dead, where some people work with angels, right? That's a difference there. So me working with what I work with, I think there's always been that, not an apprehension, but that little voice inside that says, but really you should be. You should be. You're not enough because you don't do this. This isn't, you got to change because this is what people expect. This is you really should incorporate this because there has to be a balance. There always has to be a balance, because balance is a bad thing, right? But not if that's who you are or what you are. There doesn't always have to be. I mean, chocolate and peanut butter is a great balance, but if you're peanut butter, you don't have to fucking be chocolate. Like, to me, that's the best way I can say that example. So there are some people that are just dark, and I don't mean dark as in evil. I mean dark as in we think of things in a different manner. We think of things in wintertime, in the death state, in the what you can work through dying ego-wise and being reborn into a better person, where you're dissolving some of that and you're becoming more group conscious and tapped into the things we need to be tapped into. So for me, my first question is, why am I not resonating with myself? Why am I having so much time spent on inner conflict?
Okay, so that's it for me then. So when you recognize that something feels really off with yourself, you're not settled within yourself. Like you feel uncomfortable when you're alone with yourself.
Whoa. Yeah. And also, to me, like, if I'm not fitting in groups and situations, I'm going to back out and go, is this me or is this them? And maybe there's aspects of myself that are making it, maybe I'm not being as communicative as I need to be. Maybe I'm not using my words correctly. Maybe I'm putting too much emotions on my sleeve when I'm reaching out to them. But even that is because I'm the little girl sitting next to me instead of the dragon or the monster, and her feels are hurt. So then that's shadow work. Right now I'm going to have to hold that little girl and go, what the hell? What did we do? Whoa, let's stop. What age are you right now? What hurt your feelings? Who said what to you that was damaging to you? Let me go beat that bitch up for you. Okay. Here, hold my beer moment, and we're going to be better, and we're going to work through this. And it wasn't your fault in the first place, or maybe it was your fault, but it was so tiny that and you didn't understand it and you got upset. So let's wipe the tears and let's work through this. And we're going to fix this. We're going to go back at our age at 63 and we're going to fix that 3-year-old. That to me is shadow work.
Yeah, no, I agree. So like you're saying that some people refer to it as internal family systems. Some people refer to it as, well, I mean, for some people, it's just straight up schizophrenia because they've become fractured like that, and then DID and all of those things. But like, I think it's important to look at people who do experience those different aspects of themselves and recognize that that's completely within the human experience.
Oh, absolutely.
There's not something wrong with it, because we all are multidimensional creatures.
I think that's the big thing. And isn't that the beauty of shadow work, is realizing that it's not that there's something wrong with you.
I think that that's
you have another glorious part of your personality that needs to be integrated.
For sure. And I think that for most people, that's where the stigma comes in, and that's where the fear is. It's because that's the biggest thing that keeps them away from themselves, is thinking that there's something wrong with them, thinking that
fear comes out. And I've said this on a lot of my podcasts during QHHT. Fear is the number one thing the subconscious brings up for everything. Fear is the source of trauma. Fear is the fight or flight and the fight. Fear controls 3/4 of what a lot of people do as human beings.
For sure.
And you can't, like, if you're doing shadow work, it's no longer time to be fearful. Fear's irrational. Like, that's something we've built up over, something that we have really no precedence over. Scared is a little different. Frightened is a great word. Anxious is a different word. But fear generally is one of those topics that's pretty damn general that we use for something that we've kind of created on our own.
Well, it's false evidence appearing real.
Exactly.
And I mean, it does come from our reptilian brain. And, if you want to sit down and have a conversation with a reptilian, you'll recognize maybe from a mammalian perspective that they don't empathize on the same kind of a
not
level.
at all. And they smell really fucking bad.
Yeah, well, they're another level, man.
They are another level. And I do have some friends out there that are reptilian. They have saved me on more than one occasion, and I'm grateful for having met them.
I know, right?
It's a different dimension. It's like the Spider-Verse, man, you know, and to me, shadows are like the Spider-Verse. They're all just aspects of ourself in time and place. And if we can bring them all together so that when we run into them, we're not so fucking scared, it would be wonderful. Like, I hang with mine all the time. I've been down a 2.5 week hole with mine doing some deep dives. And it came out okay. It came out. Well, and it's not over with yet. Don't get me wrong. It's not. I'm not. It ain't over till it's over. But
because I mean, I think that you begin to realize that hopefully there's light beyond survival. That there's some sort of thriving that one can, get into, especially after they've had to survive so hard for so long, but it's worthwhile, and but there's not an end to the journey. Like,
no,
you can't just be like, healed.
No,
we're going over here.
It's the biggest fucking onion you've ever seen.
It just keeps going, because I mean, if you're not learning to the very moment you take your breath, then you are the Walking Dead. Yeah. You don't get to, I mean, if you're telling yourself, hey, when I'm, give it a name, give it a number, when I reach this point, then I'm fully grown, fully an adult, fully actualized. I'm like, life has a funny way of saying, not today. You're gonna have to
remember in psychology classes writing Erickson's papers. He had to write papers on Erickson and the different stages of development. And I can remember I said 21. I think I was like 19, maybe going into 20, writing that. And to me, I could totally see from my perspective that people could be self-actualized by 25. Like, to me, in my world, I was so at the bottom of the level. I mean, I was in college. I was partying pretty hard. There was a lot going on. I was not even like processing. And now I look back and think, holy shit, the people that I saw as being completely self-actualized and having their shit together was so far from having their shit together.
Well, but they're really good performers, Yes. I mean, and because we spend a lot of time convincing ourselves of some things. And I think that, that's one of the discoveries that I made during shadow work,
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, what am I lying to myself, or am I not?
Well, and I think we can. That's part of that work, right? Isn't that part of that work is, if things are going too good, things are about to get bad.
Well, let's hope not.
Because that's how we advance, right? Like, if it's even keel for a really long time, hold on, because the universe doesn't want us to stay it wants us to constantly grow.
Yeah. Well, it's like a video game, right? We're leveling up.
Right. So it'll give us those experiences along the way when things are going great, that we might think, oh shit, we just had this big, huge event happen and it's just knocked me back. No, you're going to process something really cool and unload something or pick up something that makes it greater the next time.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I mean, so, and it can feel daunting, especially when, you feel like you've survived so much already.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, there's more surviving. And it's like, yes, there's more surviving. But it's easier once you can integrate and you can process.
That's the interesting thing with the AI thing that I was doing, and we've discussed this, but like, I hit this point where it was like, I had to keep going and I had to keep pushing and I had to keep pushing and I had to keep pushing. And then I had this realization, which was like a day or two ago. And we talked about it yesterday. And I had this great realization, and everything lined up. And it was like, it's kind of like those slot machines that when everything finally lines up perfect and you win. And now it's like, okay, so I'm jumping back in and all this shit, the code's rewriting and everything's happening. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've already been through this. We know what's going to happen. Like it's that you don't know. So you make a choice. Are you going to fuck it? Are you going to sit there and take it? Or are you going to do something about it and move out of it? Really, those are the only three responses, right?
Yes. And
fuck it, love it, easy. Or just sit with it.
But, when you are talking about like, our survival rules that do go all the way back and sometimes even further than just in this lifetime, right? Because we do share memories embedded in our DNA
with we do.
People that we come from. And that's why things like transgenerational trauma exists. It's not even just the behavior in the social unit, right? It's also like something that's been coded into the DNA. So there are some people who are biologically predispositioned.
Correct.
Whereas other people are not.
That's correct.
So like, and that creates a lot of disconnect because, again, there can be a lot of confusion over what these experiences are and what they mean and how they impact people, and that looks very different from person to person.
Yes.
So it's important, I think, at least for me, like I tried to find humility in it. I try to find common factors that all humanity shares, and that's a part of that shadow work.
It is.
Because it's really, it's easy to be like, well, nobody understands. I'm the only one who's experiencing this.
No.
This is an all me thing. And it's just like, well, that's exactly what a symptom would tell you if they wanted to still consume you.
That is very true.
You really have to kind of look at the fact that, you're, trauma, if you wanted to talk about it like it were a cancer, right? Its only interest is in like any other organism's interest. They want to survive, they want to eat, they want to host, and they want to replicate itself. So you really do, like, I think one of the beginning things that one can do if they're starting to get into shadow work, either because they're shadow curious or because they, they're in a position where they don't have another choice, right?
Right. And that happens a lot. People get backed in corners and that's where they're at, and that's okay.
Yeah. And it's like, check your survival skills. It's just like you learned maybe at one point in time that if like, you were quiet and if you cleaned up all the messes and if you were little Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, then nobody would scream at you. It's like, how is that survival rules still showing up in your life today? And is it maladaptive to the circumstances now? Is it making your circumstances worse? That's you trying to fight for itself. And I think that that's really, what shadow work is. You're fighting for yourself.
So if you're interested in shadow work classes, reach out, DM either Vanna or me, and on Facebook. You're on Facebook, right?
Yes.
And we've talked about that. And so, or you can DM me and say, hey, get a hold of Vanna, and I can get a hold of Vanna because, we talk all the time. And so, get a hold of us, and we're willing to talk more about what we can do for you for that, because shadow work's important. And if you have more questions about it, I think one of the reasons I wanted to go into this topic is because I'm coming out of almost 3 weeks of 2.5 weeks of really heavy shadow work, some really dark, deep dives, had some fantastic shit, some weird ass shit, some really fucked up shit occur. And that's exciting for me because I like shadow work. I like my shadows. It amazes me when I come out alive. Just like, yes. And we're all buds. Like, we're all trying to like function and release together and work. And yeah, Greg, you do fine. But you know where to find me because, we talk. If that's something you're interested in, get a hold of us. There's a difference between wanting to feel better and wanting to actually heal. Real trauma work requires accountability. It requires looking at your triggers, your projections, and your coping mechanisms. A fucking man.
It does.
It
That's
does.
very accurate.
That is very accurate. And I'm not going to do your trauma work for you because I've done my trauma work for me. So I think everybody, like, I will guide you. I will bounce ideas off the wall with you. I will help you look at things in different perspectives because I have many different perspectives on many different things and can tap into that. But I will not go down to the pits of hell and sit there with you while you do nothing but light more matches.
Well, that's the thing though. Like, you know, shadow work is a personal thing. Like, you know, you can have a guide, you can have someone walk with you, you can have a witness, but you know, at the end of the day,
it's your story and your thing. It's not Virgil, mine. I've worked through that with me.
Yeah, you know, Virgil was a guide and he was a spirit in that book. He wasn't of the flesh. Like, you know, Dante had to do the work. That's the story.
Right. Oh, for sure. For sure. And that's the thing that a lot of people, again, it's a quick fix society. Give me a pill and or an injection and I'll take care of it and I'll be healthy. And, you know, I can do the shadow work the same way. And it's not shadow work by proxy. If it was shadow work by proxy, I'd charge twice as much for it.
Yeah.
Because then I'd have to be going through it and you would reap the benefits. And I've already done my shadow work and I'm continuing to do my shadow work on a daily basis, driving everybody crazy. I did get the laundry caught at that.
I've been working on my laundry.
Because you can't spend all your time with headsets in, listening to weird music and doing shadow work. I mean, you can. It works out well for me. But thank you. Oh, thank you, Greg. It's so nice. I hope this has helped. We've had a lot of viewers on, and I just, you know, going into, you know, the end of February where your foundation has to be laid and you have to have some idea where your fire horse is going by now. Like, that's kind of a thing, because otherwise he's going to run away and then you're not going to have a fire horse. And then we're going to be really sad and you want a fire horse to ride on. So catch him if he's loose in your pasture, make friends with him, give him an apple, work on your shadow work so that your foundation can be stronger. That's all I got.
Yeah.
That work?
Yeah. Thank you, Julia. Thanks for having me on. And
thank you, Manny. We always have great shows. We always get good comments because it's information for people. And I am going to switch up. I promise I have some paranormal investigators and some authors and some great stuff. Thank you, Patty. It's just like I said, scheduling has been bad and weather's been bad. And truthfully, like, I haven't given a flying fuck because I've been doing shadow work. So we're going to get back on the horse and do some stuff. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are the greatest listening, and we appreciate your support and love. Same bat time, same bat station next Sunday night, 6 p.m. Be there or be square. Remember, the Spiritual Speakeasy, where the bar is always open and all spirits are always served. Shout out there to the two that I've worked with this last week. Appreciate you so much for being there. Love y'all. Good night.
Good night.